If you really want to grasp why everything feels so unstable under your feet these days, forget scanning the White House briefing room or scrolling through furious late-night posts from Mar-a-Lago. Instead, turn your attention to the soil. Check out the empty ground in Tennessee that was meant to host a $7 billion battery factory. Then shift your gaze to the soil in Ontario, Canada, where that same facility is actually going to rise. This goes far beyond one plant-changing locations. This marks a genuine geopolitical tremor. For the past 3 years, Donald Trump has positioned himself as the defender of American manufacturing. He presented tariffs as an all-powerful solution. He insisted that enough tough talk and global pressure would force companies to return jobs to U.S. soil. But the world has just exposed the limits of that approach. Volkswagen, the planet's second biggest car maker, evaluated Trump's United States, weighed Mark Carney's Canada against it, and picked the option that will sting Republicans for years. They passed on the bluster and chose calm consistency instead. While Trump kept promising a 25% levy on virtually anything crossing the border, Mark Carney quietly finalized paperwork that amounts to the largest industrial capture of this century. Carney never raised his voice or threatened retaliation. He simply left the entrance open after Trump bolted his closed. As a result, thousands of well-paid factory positions, jobs once earmarked for American communities, are now traveling northward. Over the next 40 minutes, I will walk you through the actual space where this agreement took shape. I will reveal the internal documents that have surfaced, showing how frightened American chief executives have become of their own leader. I will demonstrate how Mark Carney operates on multiple levels while Trump keeps knocking over the game board. And I will make clear why this development reaches well beyond automobiles. It directly affects your wallet, the cost of nearly every product you purchase, and the sobering awareness that the United States no longer feels like the most secure environment for major investment. You are witnessing a historic turning point unfold in real time. Let's cut through the distractions and examine precisely what occurred. This morning at 8 o'clock, Volkswagen Group issued a brief 3-paragraph announcement that landed in Washington with the force of a precision strike. For months, everything appeared settled. Volkswagen intended to enlarge its presence across the American South. The arrangement seemed final. Generous tax breaks stood ready. State leaders had already begun public celebrations. The project was supposed to represent the shining achievement of Trump's manufacturing comeback vision. Then the tariff rhetoric intensified. 2 weeks back, Donald Trump declared on Truth Social that he was contemplating a sweeping 25% duty on every imported vehicle part, including components arriving from crucial European partners, unless they satisfied a list of extremely difficult new conditions. He described the move as strategic pressure. He claimed he was applying the right amount of force. He applied force, all right. He applied so much force that the company walked away entirely. This morning, Volkswagen revealed they are abandoning their U.S. expansion plans without delay. In its place, they will begin construction on an enormous $7 billion battery plant in Ontario, Canada. The official statement remained courteous, yet the subtext was unmistakable. They pointed to predictability, respect for established trade agreements, and long-term strategic reliability. In plain business language that translates to, we refuse to sink billions into a nation whose leader rewrites regulations according to whatever thought strikes him at dawn. And here is the decisive element. Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister, did not stumble into this opportunity by chance. He deliberately engineered it. Reliable accounts from Ottawa indicate that Carney has maintained discreet, ongoing conversations with senior German industrial figures for quite some time. While Trump delivered rally after rally filled with talk of barriers and punitive taxes, Carney, the ex-central banker who navigates international finance with native fluency, was holding private discussions. He never dangled zero-tax zones or outright cash handouts. He offered something far more precious: predictability. He assured them, come to Canada. We honor commitments. We maintain seamless access to the American consumer base through the USMCA framework. And our administration does not make policy announcements at 3 a.m. on social media. The message landed perfectly. This represents a serious embarrassment for the Trump administration. You need to appreciate the magnitude. The situation resembles a groom being turned down at the wedding ceremony in front of the entire congregation. Trump repeatedly argued that tariffs would compel firms to locate production stateside. The logic ran, if you aim to sell in this market, then manufacture here. Volkswagen has just disproven that logic. They concluded that establishing operations inside Trump's America carries unacceptable uncertainty. They preferred to construct in Canada, a nation committed to legal consistency, and accept the logistics of shipping finished vehicles southward, rather than gamble on supply lines controlled by a president who approaches international commerce like an organized crime extortion scheme. So let's map the sequence clearly. Trump issued warnings, Carney paid close attention, Volkswagen relocated, and American employees ended up empty-handed. We avoid guesswork here. We rely on concrete proof. Let's review the documentation that demonstrates this outcome stemmed directly from instability rather than coincidence. Proof 1. The tariff proposal draft. Return to the origin of the problem. Roughly 3 weeks earlier, an internal executive order outline surfaced from the White House. We examined it here on the channel. The document spelled out intentions to strip foreign trade zone privileges from European car manufacturers based in southern states unless their governments reduced barriers facing American agricultural exports such as corn and beef. Consider the implication. Trump was prepared to impose extra costs on components Volkswagen requires for Tennessee production simply to improve beef sales to Germany. The tactic feels crude and heavy-handed. For an enterprise like VW, whose vehicles depend on parts crossing multiple national borders several times during assembly, that kind of uncertainty becomes toxic. No board will commit $7 billion to a site when input prices swing wildly from 1 week to the next. That leaked outline served as the signal for departure. It informed every global executive that their entire operation could suddenly become leverage in someone's domestic political game. Proof 2, the Carney German Leadership Memorandum. Examine this closely. This is the essence of a diplomatic summary from a recent session involving Mark Carney and German executives. The wording stands out sharply. Carney describes a dependable North American economic zone. He deliberately promotes Canada not merely as America's neighbor, but as a protective buffer, shielding against U.S. unpredictability. He emphasizes Canada's strategic reserves of battery minerals, lithium, cobalt, nickel, all situated within Canadian territory and vital for electrification. He pledges that Ottawa will refrain from applying sudden, backward-looking duties on friendly trading partners. Notice the sharp difference. Trump delivers ultimatums. Carney delivers assurances. Carney isn't posing as the friendly neighbor. He is acting as the intelligent one. He recognizes that German manufacturers urgently require stable energy and raw materials while fearing dependence on either China or Russia. They want a secure North American foothold, yet they dread Washington's volatility. Carney positioned Canada as the rational choice. All the advantages of the continent minus the political danger emanating from the capital. Proof 3, the immediate financial response. Markets reveal truth without spin. When the announcement landed, the Canadian dollar surged upward. Foreign money began pouring in because investors recognize genuine expansion. They see construction employment, supply chain opportunities, technical positions. Contrast that with the American Automotive Index. Ford and General Motors shares declined noticeably. Traders understand that if Volkswagen departs, Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers may trail after it. Should those suppliers cluster near the new Ontario facility, then Ford and GM operations in Michigan face higher transportation expenses to bring components back south. By driving Volkswagen away, Trump did not merely forfeit a single site. He weakened the broader industrial network. He raised the overall cost of vehicle assembly in Detroit simply because the industry's center of gravity tilted toward Ontario. And finally, consider the statement released today by United Auto Workers leadership. They declared bluntly, reckless trade conflicts do not repatriate employment. They export our future across the frontier. That is the authentic voice of industrial regions awakening to a painful reality. Donald Trump has built his entire approach around one conviction: apply sufficient pressure and people eventually yield. The strategy succeeded in New York property deals. It succeeded during the turbulent 2016 primaries. But steering the world economy bears little resemblance to intimidating a construction subcontractor. Trump is losing grip precisely because he fails to see that other players now possess real alternatives. When he floats a 25% tariff, he presumes companies lack viable escape routes. He presumes the American market towers so large that firms will absorb the penalty and show loyalty. Yet Canada sits immediately adjacent. Canada grants tariff-free entry to that same market courtesy of the USMCA agreement, an accord Trump personally endorsed. He constructed the very escape hatch that Carney is now using. Trump remains caught inside a self-reinforcing cycle. Step 1, threaten tariffs to project strength. Step 2, companies grow anxious about rising expenses. Step 3, companies search for workarounds. Step 4, Mark Carney positions Canada as the perfect workaround. Step 5, companies relocate. Step 6, Trump intensifies threats. The pattern feeds on itself. Observe his conduct today. Rather than reassessing the approach or convening stakeholders to restore confidence, he escalates. He has already returned to social media attacking so-called weak Canada and floating the idea of scrapping USMCA entirely. That threat rings hollow, and deep down, he recognizes why. Dismantling the Canadian trade relationship would devastate the U.S. economy almost instantly. Canada ranks as the top export destination for 30 American states. Sever that connection, and agriculture, energy, and financial sectors collapse overnight. The move is impossible. Mark Carney understands the constraint perfectly. Therefore, Trump can shout into the void while bulldozers in Ontario carve out foundations. He is losing authority because his reactions have become entirely foreseeable. Every major capital now possesses his operational manual. They realize that patience or creative navigation causes him to stumble over his own rhetoric. The frightening implication for Americans is that while he flounders, investment capital continues draining away. Major facilities require years to complete. Once concrete is poured in Ontario, that project will not migrate back to Tennessee anytime soon. Those dollars have departed for decades. This shift represents far more than a short-term setback. It constitutes a lasting reconfiguration of the North American industrial landscape, triggered by the reality that the President of the United States has emerged as the single greatest uncertainty facing business operations inside the country. Now consider the figure across the border, Mark Carney. You must recognize that Carney operates differently from Trump. Trump thrives on spectacle. Carney functions like an engineer. He is a genuine technocrat. He once led the Bank of Canada and later the Bank of England. Few people alive possess a clearer grasp of global financial mechanics. While Trump performs for audiences, Carney engages boardrooms. His method has been labeled the Green Citadel strategy by analysts. He accepts that Canada cannot rival the United States in scale. The U.S. population is 10 times larger, but Canada can excel in dependability. Carney markets Canada as the mature, responsible option. His presentation to Volkswagen avoided sentiment and relied on arithmetic. He quantified the added expense created by Trump's unpredictability. He computed the risk surcharge attached to operating inside a politically volatile United States. Then he presented the Canadian alternative at a clear discount. Arrive here. We generate clean hydroelectric power. We control the essential battery minerals you require. Our courts will not confiscate your investment because a national leader experienced a troubling night. He has turned steadiness into a competitive weapon. Observe his language carefully. He avoids personal attacks on Trump. He refuses to descend into social media exchanges. When questioned about the Volkswagen decision this morning, Carney replied simply, Canada remains open for commerce, and we take pride in serving as a dependable ally amid global uncertainty. The phrase global uncertainty functions as a restrained yet piercing critique aimed directly at the current White House. He is quietly assembling a coalition of pragmatic partners, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom, and weaving a trade framework that sidesteps Washington's current dysfunction. This represents a fresh form of influence. It rejects intimidation and embraces design. Carney is reconstructing the structure while Trump attempts to set it ablaze. For ordinary Canadians, the outcome delivers enormous benefits: advanced technology employment, reduced reliance on raw hydrocarbon exports to the United States, and the emergence of Canada as an independent manufacturing power rather than merely an American satellite facility. So, what should this mean to you? If you reside in the United States, concern is warranted. The Volkswagen move serves as an early warning signal. When even a cautious, ponderous German conglomerate demonstrates sufficient agility to evade Trump's policies, every other major player possesses the same capacity. We may be witnessing the gradual erosion of America's hoped-for manufacturing renaissance. The Biden administration attempted to nurture it through the Inflation Reduction Act. Trump is dismantling it through persistent tariff uncertainty. Departing companies remove their tax contributions. Shrinking tax bases undermine schools, delay infrastructure repairs, and force higher local levies to compensate. It also suggests that your next vehicle purchase could carry a steeper price tag because more units arrive from Canada. And should Trump eventually apply duties on those Canadian-built cars, the additional cost lands on you, not Volkswagen. That remains the unspoken truth about tariffs. Consumers ultimately absorb them. A 25% duty on Canadian-assembled Volkswagens could inflate sticker prices by $10,000 or more. Should you choose not to purchase, your available options shrink. Globally, the development indicates the decline of unchallenged U.S. economic dominance. For 7 decades, the United States occupied the gravitational center of the world economy. Nations revolved around Washington. Mark Carney has just illustrated that prosperity is possible in close orbit around the U.S. market without being directly subjected to its domestic turbulence. He has shown that adjacency can be leveraged without surrendering to political instability. This serves notice to Japanese manufacturers. Toyota watches closely. Honda watches closely. Should they observe Volkswagen thriving in Ontario? Will they select Alabama for their next facility? Or will they recognize Canadian stability on the map and follow the same northward path? We may be witnessing an expansion of the Rust Belt phenomenon, this time not driven by lower wages in Mexico, but by superior policy coherence in Canada. Pay attention to one particular instant captured during today's event in St. Thomas. Volkswagen CEO Oliver Blume stood at the lectern, flanked by crossed Canadian and German flags. A journalist inquired whether American political conditions influenced the choice. Most executives deflect such questions with vague replies. Blume did not. He paused, steadied the microphone, and delivered 5 words that should alarm Republicans deeply. Capital goes where it is welcome. He never uttered Trump's name. He had no need to. The quiet that followed carried more weight than any campaign address. Capital goes where it is welcome. Right now, thanks to Donald Trump, capital no longer perceives America as welcoming. It feels targeted. Standing beside Blume, Mark Carney offered no grin, just a single nod. That nod communicated volumes. It said, "We provided refuge, and they arrived." So what lies ahead? This represents the truly hazardous phase. Normally, leaders de-escalate at this point. Trump rarely chooses de-escalation. Possibility 1, retaliatory duties. Trump probably rises tomorrow and proclaims punitive levies targeting Canadian automotive components in order to penalize Volkswagen's departure. That ignites reciprocal measures. Canada could restrict energy shipments in response. Power costs across the northeastern United States would climb rapidly. The fallout would escalate quickly. Possibility 2, intensified border friction. Trump might direct aggressive inspections that delay Canadian shipments. We have witnessed similar tactics previously. Tractor trailers stretch for miles at crossings like the Ambassador Bridge. Canada suffers, certainly, but American vehicle assembly lines, built around just-in-time logistics, grind to a halt within days if critical pieces sit idle for even 48 hours. Trump would effectively choke his own constituents simply to strike at Carney. Possibility 3, cascading realignment. This appears the most plausible extended outcome. Additional countries view Canada as the secure harbor. Capital surges into Ontario and Quebec. The United States drifts into a phase of inward-looking stagnation, while Canada embarks on an era of accelerated industrial expansion. Carney fully grasps the dangers. He is already fortifying Canada against potential backlash, stockpiling financial buffers, securing European backing, preparing contingency plans. He calculates that Trump will thunder loudly, but refrain from inflicting damage severe enough to crater the American economy. The wager is deliberate. Carney has spent a career mastering such calculations. Volkswagen's decision to bypass the United States for Canada amounts to more than a corporate transaction. It stands as a judgment. It judges two competing visions for tomorrow. One vision reacts with anger, clings to nostalgia, erects barriers, and severs connections. The other remains composed, forward-looking, and deliberate, constructing facilities and honoring agreements. Donald Trump sought to render America intimidating. Instead, he rendered it erratic. Mark Carney sought to render Canada essential. And today, with $7 billion of German capital flowing into Canadian accounts, it appears he has prevailed. The Tennessee site will stay barren ground. The Ontario site will produce tomorrow's vehicles. And Americans are left wondering exactly how steep the price of America First will ultimately become. I want your thoughts. Is Mark Carney brilliant for securing this project, or is he needlessly provoking a volatile neighbor? Can Canada withstand the fallout should Trump escalate dramatically at the border? And if you live in the United States, how does it feel seeing jobs once promised to your communities redirected northward, largely because of leadership decisions? Share below. I read every comment. This channel continues covering the evolving U.S.-Canada dynamic each day. Mainstream outlets have largely overlooked the story. We have not. Click subscribe and turn on notifications. You need accurate updates because Trump's next move is approaching, and it will not be subtle. Keep watching.